Alonzo, I wanted to ask you, all right, what do you think that we should fight for in 2019?
Well, before that question is answered, I think the first fight is within the Democratic Party.
Yes.
The party being split just doesn't work. So I think whether you want to call them established, corporate, whatever, Democrats need to listen to the progressives, need to respect the progressives, and bring in some of that agenda. And again, it's a matter of there are corporate Democrats, right, that just won't do the progressive agenda. And then there's progressive Democrats that just won't listen to the corporate. And then you get to the major elections, right, as we saw in 2016, and the party split. And people, I still think, again, I don't agree with the Republicans, but the strategy works. Everyone gets on board, a simple message, simple like the one issue voters, it doesn't even have to be true, right? You just make it up. Obama's going to take all your guns. Boom, you got all of those votes. So you know what I mean? So I think that some things that the progressive agenda needs to look at and see that people responded to. I think one big one is education, student loans, concerns of the millennials. Get the young people out to vote. Get people under 30 interested enough to go vote, to be a part of the system. You have to look at the things now, they're a generation, I mean, I do jokes about it, well, they're millennials, everyone jokes about them. But, but they're looking at like, we're not gonna own homes, they don't have that piece of the American dream, And I think you have to figure that out. Like I used to joke, like their only hope in owning a home is old people dying.
And they just inherit.
You're like, oh man, we need some old people to die so I have a shot. We need to come up with a better plan than that. I think so. I think that is a group that you need to reach, because here's what you're not going to reach. You're not going to change that, quote, middle class working white man, whatever. The so-called Trump dissatisfied Trump. They're not going to change. They're not going to change it. Forget about them. Go after people who aren't voting or who feel disenfranchised, not involved. The other thing I think you need to talk to, they say that the progressives can't get the rural people. Talk to the rural people and point out, and again, it's hard because people, they make up their mind, right? And then the truth doesn't matter. But if you point out, hey, how close is your nearest hospital? Because you have these people now who they've closed the hospitals because of the cuts to healthcare, and it's a 100-mile drive to get to the hospital or something like that. Again, it's an issue that you can get people who are on the fence. You have to get them. You're not going to convert people whose minds are made up, and the Democratic Party has to come together. When you look at people like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who Trump couldn't have treated with less respect. Couldn't have, I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to talk about your wife, whatever. And yet, once he became the man, the Republicans were like, all right, get on board. And now you watch these two, you have to do that. As the party has to do that if they want to win an election.
Yeah. So that's why I love these shows, because we have a variety of folks on, and I knew if Alonso came on that he would fight for the rural voters.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm big in the South. I'm a big target in the South. Actually, I'm a loudmouth target. My car doesn't stop in the South. I just drive through. I keep moving. Major cities only major cities.
Yeah, you can't buy a beer in the South. No, literally, you can't buy a beer in the South. No. But I love a whole bunch of things that you said. I want to emphasize, I think, three, which are different than what other people have said. So everybody's adding a different part of the conversation. Like Anna talked about Wall Street regulation when no one else did. Ro Khanna came on, talked about the war in Yemen, how we got to stop it. He's got a bill, and they almost won just in the last couple of days. It was 206 or 203. I think they can win when the Democrats take the House. But you added a bunch of things that I want to talk about. But first, part of what we're doing here is talking about the progressive agenda and having all these folks on. But the other thing that we're doing is membership drive to build home of progressives here, make it sustainable and strong for the Young Turks, and getting our message out. So People have been giving to that through the Amplify program. That way they give to journalism students or to people in the media and public life. So just new updates that came in as Alonso was talking. Brian Sontag from Washington, $150. That'll be 3 memberships to journalism students across the country, and I think they'll deeply appreciate it. And it helps build homo progressives. You're also going to get an Amplify T-shirt for specific to this campaign. Nancy Weaver from Driftwood, Texas. Speaking of rural voters, $150. You also get a T-shirt. And thank you guys, Nancy and Brian. Really, really appreciate it. I know some of you have been with us for a long time. And of course, if you want to join, and you'll be able to get this whole 5-hour program, including Ocasio-Cortez earlier, Rosario Dawson, and Elizabeth Warren later, et cetera. tyt.com/join. It's just $4.99 a month. I mean, that's basically a progressive Netflix. I mean, so, and we got 15 different shows. Okay.
And it's not Netflix, so join. Don't use your friend's password, all right? None of that. No, join yourself. It's $5.
Okay, so now, Alonzo, you added a topic that I think is a sleeping giant, and that's student loans. So, and I've said this a couple times now because it's really dawning on me how powerful it is. And look, it takes a while to move anybody. And I gotta give a shout out here to Jill Stein, okay? Now, I didn't vote for Jill Stein. I'm keeping it real. I'm always honest with you guys about who we support and how, when, et cetera, right? But we gave her an opportunity that almost no one else did. She came on the show many times. We did a town hall for her. And in fact, I remember we got a note back from a reporter in Washington through a friend saying, oh, just when the Young Turks was gaining credibility, they had Jill Stein on. What? No, you give people a real chance. It's called a democracy, right? And I remember when Jill said on the show the first time she was on that, hey, her campaign pledge is to wipe away all student loans. I was like, nah, that's a bridge too far. That's kind of crazy, okay? And I told her while she was on the air, because that's what we do, right? And I was like, well, it seems like a bit much, right? But since then, what has happened is the Republicans passed a $1.9 trillion tax cut for the rich. And you know how much it is to take away student loans for everyone in the country? 1.5 trillion. So here's an easy fix. Why don't we take back the tax cuts for the rich and give it to students and wipe out all their loans? Do you have any idea how much that would help economically? And it would liberate a generation of Americans. And so right now, progressives are beginning to think about it, right? It's
right. And this is a thing, even if you don't wipe it out completely, you make it a livable thing. You know what I mean? Like this is where people say, oh, there's too much government to do. It's the government's job to help people. So if there's an interest rate you come up with, or a low interest rate, a reasonable payment, where somebody who's starting out in their career, they're not making a lot of money yet, can make this payment. And it's okay, because I've heard all these horrible stories about people getting their credit scores messed up and this and that. And now in today's society, if you have a low credit score, you are screwed. Because the way things work, everything's going to cost you more now. You know, it's almost backwards. It's like, oh, you're broke and you don't have credit? We're going to charge you more for everything. You know, and unfortunately, what you said is right. That 1.9 trillion, the rich people making that are the ones who make money off of the student debt. They're the ones who own and run the banks and this or that. It's backwards. It is backwards.
So in fact, there's some insane thing where the United States government backs a lot of those loans, okay? But they are done through an intermediary, which is the private banks.
Yes.
So what have we done? As the Naomi Klein's famous saying, we privatize the gains and socialize the losses. So when the banks make money off of your student loans, they keep the money. But if they lose money, they go, hey, no, federal government insured that, so federal government's gonna pay.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's insane. So for example, when the banks all went under in 2008, now companies go bankrupt. It's very normal. You just ask the president. He's done it 6 times. Okay.
He's very good at it.
Yeah, to be fair, that is one thing he's good at.
There's not much he understands, but he understands. That's the biggest word he can understand.
That's right.
That is actually the biggest word that he can understand.
So, one of our viewers actually in a tweet or comment that they sent in the other day while we were live on the air made a great point. I always make fun of him because he's so incompetent. He says, no, it's good business to go bankrupt. No, that's the opposite of good business, right? Good business is making money. I know that's a weird concept for Donald Trump. But our viewer pointed out, you know what though? He's a lifelong criminal, as I've been saying all along. In a sense, bankruptcy is what allows him to steal people's money. He borrows the money, and it's not just that he's incompetent. It's his business MO. That's his modus operandi, a word he probably does not understand. But what you do regularly, Donald, okay, is you take people's money and then you don't pay it back. I mean, it's just ripping people off. Right.
Well, it is because he goes in with that idea.
With that intention, exactly.
The contractors that he doesn't pay and the people like that. I mean, and again, bankruptcy as an idea is great because if you tried a business and you've sincerely tried and put everything in it and your business doesn't work out, maybe you shouldn't lose your home or whatever else. Maybe you should be able to bankrupt the business while maintaining a life. That's okay. But when you go in and do it intentionally, maybe we could limit the number. Maybe 5 bankruptcies in a lifetime is good,
and in fact, so that's so true. And a lot of people in this country go bankrupt because of healthcare bills, which is an absolute crime, right? And so I'm not going after people that go bankrupt because they tried or they got a family member got sick, et cetera. It's that Trump does it as a regular course of business because he intends to rip you off when he goes into business with you. That's why no one would lend him any money anymore except Russian banks. And so Russian banks stepped in to give him money when American banks wouldn't because he kept ripping people off. And apparently they wanted something in return.
They got it.
And here they are.
They got it.
Right? Yeah. And the Russian banks started giving him money a long time ago, actually.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not like they're stupid in Russia and don't know that Trump's a scam artist, right? But they apparently feel like they have enough leverage over him that they can still get what they want.
And, and this is nothing new that for big businesses, banks, or to buy influence. That's nothing new to whether it be paying politicians or businessmen or whatever. I mean, influence has always been for sale, right? Access has always been for sale. And that is one thing that he had. He's, like it or not, good, bad, or indifferent, he's in those circles. And he always has been. So
that's right.
But I'm sorry.
No, sorry, Alonzo. I was just going to say, in the past, it wasn't necessarily because the Russians thought that he was going to become president. That was, of course, for a long time an outlandish idea. But there's still many other things that he offered them, including the ability to wash their money here in America, because they need to get it out. If you're an oligarch, you need to get it out of your home country, no matter where it is, Russia, Turkey, it doesn't matter, right? And Saudi Arabia, China, it doesn't matter. You got to get it out of the country. You invested in something here, and then you sell it, and there's a process for money laundering. And in fact, the only other bank that gave Donald Trump any money was Deutsche Bank, and he had his money in the same part of the bank as the Russian oligarchs did. Right. It was called the global laundromat, and so they would buy stuff sometimes, a lot of times from Trump, and it as a way to wash their money. Okay, and so Trump was a willing participant in that, and that's why they participated. So the Russians did get something out of it, even before the presidency. The presidency was like, whoa, how did we get this lucky, right? And plus, obviously, they helped that luck along during the election, it appears.
But what you're talking about, the big businessmen, the banks, et cetera, they use this debt as a tool, and they get to wipe this debt away, whereas the college kid, right, they say middle class, not even poor, middle class college kid who needs a college education. It costs $10,000 a year to go to school or whatever. Odds are good his parents don't have that just laying around. So now he or she comes out of school with a degree and a debt. And they can't just wipe that debt away. They can't just say, well, I invested in myself, didn't work out. I'll keep this piece of paper. Good luck with, they don't get to do that. Like you said, the bank doesn't care because the bank knows they're going to get the money from the feds. And this is just another example. There's an old saying, like, if you steal $100, you go to jail. And if you steal $100 million, you get to meet the president. You know what I mean? That's how it works, right? I mean, just what you talked about, the oligarchs, money launderers, and we've seen it, bankers and investment bankers, et cetera, doing all kinds of things, legal, illegal, definitely shady, and getting away with it and getting richer and richer. And the average person has no access to that sort of thing. And these are the people, again, that the progressives need to reach out to. And you have to make it simple. You can't get too detailed in the explanation because you lose people.
So I want to go to that point next because I think that's another great point that you made. But I also focus on what Alonso just said. Student loan debt is the only debt you cannot wipe away in this country. Now think about how insane that is. So if you're incredibly rich and you took these wild risks and you lost people's money, you can wipe that away, it's okay, right? But if you're poor or middle class and you have the student loan debt, you don't have the ability to pay it back, unlike Donald Trump, but he can wipe away all his debts, but you can't. That makes no sense. That makes no sense unless the people running the country are the rich oligarchs.
Well, that's the reason it makes sense is because you look at who makes the rules.
Exactly.
That's why it makes sense. Like if you had to figure out, oh wait, the people who make the rules, are these people. So of course the rules are going to be in their favor.
And now we're finally recapturing our government, so we make the rules. So what do? We run uncorrupted candidates like Ocasio-Cortez, Ro Khanna, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, et cetera. Pramila Jayapal, a lot of those folks are actually on today's show. And all of a sudden, they're putting a lot of pressure on, and we're starting to see some movement for the first time ever. So I want to keep doing the shout outs, and then I want to go to Alonzo's second point about that simple message, because there's actually something really important as to why the Democrats don't do that, even though it makes all the sense in the world. But there's a secret reason. I want to tell you about that. First, James Gustafson from Milwaukee also just gave to the Amplify program, tyt.com/amplify. Earlier today, John Oliver, Face the Nation, got Young Turks membership. It's pretty cool. Rosario Dawson, who's joining us later, got Young Turks membership from one of you guys, and she'll be on in a little bit. So keep that going, and if you're a member, you can watch.
Rosario can't cover $5 a month. I mean, I know they canceled Daredevil, but she seemed to be doing all right.
We want to make sure that our allies also have Young Turks membership and talk about it. Okay, I'm pretty sure Chuck Todd can afford it too, but he just wasn't coming around. Whereas Rosario and her family, actually, you're not that wrong. They already listen to the Young Turks.
Oh so yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So I think one of her uncles actually turned her onto the show, which is pretty neat. Yeah. And if you want to get this whole show and see all the characters that I just talked about anytime you want, tyt.com/join and become a member. Oh, let's take a quick look at the thermometer before I get to the last point that Alonso made. So we're trying to get to 40,000 by the end of the year. And tonight we were trying to get to 39,000. We started at 38,700, so it was an ambitious goal. Let's see where we are now. I think that was the last time. I think there should be an update on it. 38,856, that's good. There you go, 872, okay? So keep it rolling, guys, tyt.com/join. All right, so Alonso, so why not have simple messages that resonate with the American people? How could you possibly argue against that? But they do, they literally do, the corporate Democrats. So what is their excuse? They say, no, if you fight for big ideas like Medicare for all, it's easy to understand. Everybody likes Medicare, 77% popularity. We just give it to everybody instead of just old, just people above the age of 65. It's really simple. That's why it polls at 70%. So why not push for it? Well, in the red and purple districts, our conservative Democrats would be hurt by it because Republicans don't like health care, Republican voters, and they like corporations ruling us, so they like dealing with big insurance companies. So we don't want to hurt the couple of conservative Democrats we have in the party, so we are not going to have a party position at all, because otherwise the Republicans could use it against them in those districts. Well, the polling shows that Medicare for All polls at 52% among Republicans. So in fact, it might help them in their Republican districts. Right. And if you can't fight for a position that has 70% approval in the country, are you really a political party? Are you really a party that stands for anything?
Well, I mean, it's true on both sides, because you have the let's call them reasonable Republicans who hate what's happened to the Republican Party, And these corporate, and that whole thing of that what are they calling the blue dog Democrats, or the Democrats who are in Republican areas, and it's like, well, too bad, like pick a side. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm going to be the Republican Democrat in the right wing. Well, move to a different neighborhood, something. This is what I'm talking about, though. These fractures are what destroy the Democratic Party, because you're trying to be all things to all people instead of saying this is what we are and letting everybody see, you know what I mean? See the message that we are this one thing. Are you on board? Instead, well, we're going to try to be this for you. We'll try to be this for you. We'll try to be this for you. We'll try to be this for you. And then now we're nothing to anybody.
We're nothing. Then
there's no, if people ask, when people ask for the Republicans, like, what do they want? It's like they're anti-abortion, they're pro-gun, the wall, whatever. When you ask for Democrats, they're like, I can't answer that question. I can't give you 3 definite things like that for the Democrats that the Republicans have.
So, well, let's end on this, because that's such a great point. Think about what Alonzo is saying. The Republicans, on the other hand, they will fight for the wall. The wall actually only has 30% popularity. 70% say do not fund it now, or 50% say don't ever fund it, okay? But Republicans will fight like hell for their 30%. The Democrats will not fight for the 70%. Right. First of all, if you just care about politics and winning, that's insanity. So why? Because the donors give to both sides, right? And they want strong Republicans and weak Democrats, and no matter what happens, the donor class wins. So, and the perfect example is tax cuts. Tax cuts are also deeply unpopular at this point. The Republicans even stopped running ads in the midterm elections, because the more they ran ads bragging about the tax cuts, the lower their numbers went.
Yeah, because people realize that tax cut isn't for me.
Exactly. And so should the Democrats then, hey, you got a winning issue, the Republicans are actually surrendering, right? You should fight against the tax cuts for the rich. No. That'll hurt the conservative Democrats in the districts, because in those districts, they don't like the tax cuts for the rich either. Right.
And also, the wall is a good example of what used to be the dog whistle, but is now a bullhorn. It's not about the wall, it's about the message behind the wall, right? The message behind, keep out the Mexicans, keep out the other, blank, fill in, So that's what they're saying with the wall amongst the Republicans. And the Democrats, maybe your message is being inclusive. Maybe your message is, yes, if you're on the outskirts, if you're in that group, whether it be immigrant or black or gay, transgender, if you're an other, you're welcome here. That's the message against the wall, not the money, because the money ain't going to happen, right? So as I understand it, the Mexicans were paying for it. I don't know where the money is. I was told that the Mexicans were paying for the wall, and I'm watching Narcos on Netflix. They got a lot of money. They sold a lot of weed. Where'd that money go? They could buy a wall. No, it's you have to have a message that's simple and people can understand.
That's exactly right. And last thing on it is, it also then amplifies the message, if you will, right?
Yes.
Because then if all the Democrats are speaking in unison, except some 5% running in some districts, that I think they would be better served on a strong message anyway, right? But even if you accepted the corporate Democratic position that those guys would have less of a chance, well, how about 95% of your party that you're sacrificing for the theoretical 5%? It's not that. It's just an excuse to take corporate money and do what they want. Have a strong, unified, progressive position. Alonzo is exactly right. And meanwhile, by the way, Torrin Pesos from Pennsylvania gave $150. Rusty Bias from Dixon, Tennessee gave $150. You guys are gonna get a t-shirt too, the Amplify t-shirt for this program. tyt.com/amplify. And Alonzo, you're awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank you. And these people, it's these people you're talking about donating from small towns in Texas, Tennessee, whatever. Okay, just a note to the corporate Democrats. These people didn't check with their Republican neighbors and say, hey, is it all right if I give money to TYT? Like, ooh, now I'm not going to be invited to the party, or you know what I mean? Like they had their own independent voice in areas that I'm sure are right-leaning. And another example of it is right down the road. Orange County is a perfect example. Orange County went blue, and that there was no place more conservative. That was like the conservative enclave in California, right? The conservative money hideout.
Yeah.
And it went blue, and it didn't go blue by the candidates saying, hey, we're going to do just what the Republicans do. We're kind of scared to have a mess. No, they went blue by telling people, like, this ain't working. We're different. You know?
Yeah, and the Democrats who did that, like Joe Donnelly in Indiana, got slaughtered. Because if you have a choice between a real Republican and someone pretending to be a Republican, they're going to vote for the real Republican.
Right.
So, and Alonzo, where can people find out about your shows?
AlonzoBodden.com, ALONZOBODD. Look, just look up Comic Alonzo. It's either me or Cristela Alonzo. I'm the black guy, okay? Because they sometimes mix me and Cristela up. Just Google Comic Alonzo. You'll find me across all media, social media, etc. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Cenk.
And if you're watching this later, we'll have the link to Alonzo's website and Amplify and Join and all of that in the description box. So just click on it. All right, thank you again, man. Really appreciate it. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.